Hello, my name is Rick Lewis. I'm with Phenom Hoop Report. On today's Coach's Corner, I have Coach PJ Lowman from Apex Friendship. Welcome, Coach.
Okay, so I'm glad you could have me today. Looking forward to it.
Coach, let's talk a little bit about your basketball history as far as your playing days. You played for Jordan Matthews out of Siler City, and you graduated in 1995. What's the scouting report on you as a player?
Well, I always tell my guys who are role players that I identify with them very well. I was real fortunate to be on a really talented team. Played with Terrence, of course, who went on to play for 4 years at North Carolina and went to 3 Final Fours. He wasn't even our leading scorer, to show you how good we were. So I often joke that I should be the MVP of that team because I was one of the few guys with my license, and I drove those guys around a lot and make sure they got to practice. So, but it was a great experience. I played for a tremendous high school coach that won a whole bunch of games, and more than anything else, he was extremely respected and was a guy that I learned a lot from.
Now, Coach, after your playing days, you attended UNC Greensboro. When did the light bulb go off in your head that I want to be a basketball coach?
I think there's a couple things I've always known. I knew I wanted to coach, and I knew I wanted to teach government. And I'm fortunate to be able to do that. But what made me more lucky than anything else was I think that Coach John Phillips, my high school coach, saw that I wanted to do that, and he helped me. And I know that sounds so simple, but looking back on it, I see how much that he gave me. For example, when I was in college, I coached the summer team at Jordan Matthews. So he would drive the bus and let me coach them. And as a coach now, I can't imagine giving up control of my team during the summer the way he did. But we as coaches have a hard time letting go of control sometimes. And for a guy that was that successful to let me, still a teenager, coach the team during the summer, it was pretty unique. And looking back on it, I just can't believe that opportunity. And that was my chance to find out if I really wanted to do this, and it really took off. And I've known since then, hey, I want to do this, and I was real lucky that he gave me that platform.
Now, Coach, immediately after your graduation from USC Greensboro, you were very fortunate and lucky to get a job at Pinecrest High School as a JV coach in Southern Pines. What went through your mind at that point in time, as far as young as you were, you wanted to get into coaching, and as soon as you graduate, you're really shot into the situation where you have a position at Pinecrest?
Well, that position came very interestingly enough, like kind of by I just so happened to stumble upon it. I was at UNCG, as you mentioned, and again, knowing I wanted to coach and working with Coach Phillips during some summers, my last year there, I student taught at Page High School, and walked into the gym one day, and to backtrack a little bit, I asked some folks around the area including some of my mentors like Coach Phillips, who's a good guy in Greensboro to attach to. And so many people mentioned Robert Kent at Page High School. So I hopped in the car and rode over to the gym one day and walked up, introduced myself to Coach Kent, and said, I just want to coach basketball. I want to help. And the guy had no clue who I was, but he was also really, really helpful in giving me the opportunity, giving me a platform. And when I graduated, after student teaching there and coaching there for a year, I thought, you know what, I'd love to work at Page High School. If you remember back in the days, we went for a few years where school had an early start in early August. And, jobs were really filling up early in the summer. Well, it just so happened that Guilford County was a year behind, and they started still that 1 year later, or that 1 year before everyone else had switched to go to the early start. Guilford County was still starting a little bit later. So they weren't in a hurry to hire, and I was a little scared. So as much as I wanted to stay at Page where I was comfortable, and I enjoyed Coach Kent and working with him, and Darren Corbett, who's now the head coach at Grimsley, was our JV coach at Page. So some great guys to be around. But I wanted to stay there, maybe the freshman coach, help Coach Kent, whatever it took. But it got to be late July, and I was a little scared. I didn't have a job. So I went to the coaches clinic. And you've probably done this for years and saw that board of jobs there. And I got to the point, Coach, I was a little scared. I quit looking for coaching jobs and just started looking for social studies jobs. I needed to make sure I had some employment. and I saw Pinecrest High School had an opening for a social studies teacher. So I drove down there and interviewed. And while in the interview, I told Miss Allen, who I interviewed with, I'm like, ma'am, I really would like to take the job. I'm interested in this school, but I really want to coach basketball. So she hopped on the phone and called Terry Davis, who another guy. I mean, talk about a career of people giving me an opportunity. Never met me, and just said, hey, he wants to coach that bad, I'll find something for him. And I was real lucky that I did that, and Pinecrest worked out. And it was a great starting point for me. What was crazy about it, Coach, I didn't know anybody there. I didn't know a soul at that building. And I go into my first faculty meeting, and I'm sitting down at a table, and I'm introducing myself. And, I'm thinking, man, I'm overwhelmed. It's a 4A school. I don't know anybody. I'm from a small town. And I was real lucky to have people embrace me there. From a coaching standpoint, from a teaching standpoint, I had a tremendous mentor, a lady by the name of Ann McLean, who was a teacher there, has went on to administration and in retirement now. But she helped me grow as a teacher. Some of the coaches I worked with there helped me grow as a coach, and I was real lucky to stumble into that. So it's kind of crazy how fortunate smiled on me early as I tried to get my start.
It's amazing how things sort of fall into place. And 3 years later, you had a chance to return home, and you had a chance to coach at your alma mater, and you had a chance to go back to Jordan Matthews. What was it like to know that, hey, I'm going back to where I played?
Well, that was interesting. I was still pretty young. So, walking into that, I'm going in with people who taught me, who are still in the building. And there's a big difference from shifting from PJ Lowman, the student, to PJ Lowman, who's actually a professional now. At least I try to be most of the time. But so that was a unique transition. But after being at Pinecrest and working with Coach Davis there, and then the last year working with Mike Apple, who was tremendous, taught me a lot about being a coach and being organized, who's the national champion, two-time national champion at San Jose Community College now. It's the funny, Rick, how this worked out. We had played a summer game against Jordan Matthews while I was at Pinecrest. I was on the bench at Pinecrest with Coach Apple. A week later, Pinecrest comes to Jordan Matthews. I'm on the bench at Jordan Matthews in a summer game. So it went that quickly. I was in my apartment in Southern Pines, and I got off the phone with Principal David Moody, who that guy gave me an opportunity. And, he told me, he said, we'd like to offer you the job. And I didn't know how excited I would be. But when I hung up the phone and ran around and danced around my apartment, I thought, okay, yeah, I really want this. I can tell now. So to go into that and replace a guy like John Phillips, not easy. And I tell people all the time, when you replace a legend, it's not an easy thing. And for most people, there's some failure there. And the reason that I feel so lucky is, instead of being a guy who sat on the side and almost loomed over the program, instead he was a support system for me. He was my AD, so he continued to be the AD at Jordan Matthews, but and I can tell you, the first conversation I had with him, like about a year sooner, he told me he thought about getting out. And I remember telling him, like, Coach, if you want to get out, then I would probably be interested in the job. But I do not want to coach at Jordan Matthews if you still want to be the coach in any capacity. And then when we had that conversation before I took the job, he said, yeah, I'm done coaching. I'm ready to move on. And I felt comfortable moving in, and he made me comfortable. Guy who was our girls coach, state champion, Jeff Stutz, was my high school government teacher. So I worked, side by side with my AD, who was my former coach, and the girls coach, who was my former teacher. So it was a unique experience. But I was real blessed to get that opportunity and to walk into somewhere where we were 28 and 28 those first 2 years combined. But after that, it really took off. Good players really help you look real good, and that's what happened there.
Well, you said you're quite young. You had to grow up really, really fast. Like you said, a lot of people knew you as PJ Lowman, the student and the basketball player. Now you're the varsity head coach. But you had a good run. I know you said it started off a little bit slow at the beginning, but in your 12 years at Jordan Matthews, you went 222 wins, 109 losses. But the most impressive stat there, Coach, was you had 5 seasons where you had 20-plus wins. Then in 2016, you had an opportunity to take the job at Apex Friendship. Now, here you are basically coaching at the school you played at. How difficult was it for you to leave and take that job at Apex Friendship?
Well, it was tough, and really not even about basketball. From a relationship standpoint, it's really tough. I had a lot of good people that I worked with there. Had a few principals through the years, had a couple different ADs, and a lot of good people in my department that I worked with. And the kids were tremendous. The players were just some of the greatest people I've ever been around. I tell people sometimes my greatest strength as a coach has nothing to do with X and O's. I feel like I've done a real good job of picking people to be around me, and I've picked some really good kids through the years, and they responded really well. So it was tough to leave those kids. But, interestingly enough, I had no intention to chase the job at Apex Friendship. I moved to Apex about a year before the job opened, and just drove back and forth, and it was fine. I've got, at the time, I had 2 kids, twin boys. They were really young, but it was okay. I mean, we made it work. But as the job opened up at Apex Friendship, there was a family situation there. My wife was pregnant with our second set of twins. So I had a little boy and a little girl on the way. So I did my due diligence. I said, this school's 4 miles from my house. I'm going to ride over there and meet with them. Again, no intention to take it, but no intention to turn it down. Just wanted to see. And I walked into the door and met with Matt White, the principal there, who is just phenomenal. The administration there, super supportive. And I really like the people that I met. The girls coach, Scott Campbell, real supportive. So I've been really lucky to be surrounded by good people there. And the best thing about the job at Apex Friendship early on, I walked out of that meeting and the committee fortunately decided to offer me the job. They didn't pressure me. Mr. White gave me as much time as I needed. And he knew it was hard for me. I mean, Coach, I was in the middle of finishing up my teaching year at George Matthews, and a week later had to be the graduation speaker for the class of 2016 at George Matthews. So it was all personal and it was hard to do. But Mr. White stepped back and said, take the time you need, meet with your family, talk to who you need to talk to. We'll be here, ask me questions. And I woke up one morning and I thought, you know what, this is a chance to see if I think I'm a pretty good coach. I think I do okay, but this is a chance for me to see if I'm any good. Let's go over here and let's start fresh. The table was set for me at Jordan Matthews when I got there, and there was really nothing. Brand new school at Apex Friendship. So I thought, you know what, if I'm supposed to be a good coach, I need to go over here and grow and see if I can do this. And I called Mr. White one afternoon. I said, where are you? He said, well, I'm at the girls' soccer game. I said, it was in the spring. I said, I'm gonna ride over there real quick, and then I got to tell you something. So I rode over there. And I said, look, I want to try. And he shook my hand and said, well, welcome aboard. And there we go. And we hit the ground running as fast as we could. And boy, did we stumble a lot in the beginning. Whew. It was tough. It was real tough with the new school in Wake County with a bunch of freshmen, sophomores. But
yeah, I imagine people had probably asked you what were you doing because it was a new program. And I think you were telling me when you inherited the program, they went 0-20. Now, your first year, you won 1 game. You went 1-23, but you had no seniors on the team. It was all new players, basically. But the second season you were there, you improved to 22-7. That was
we had a 10-win year there in between, and that was with 1 senior. So we were 1-23 and then 10-15 with 1 senior the second year. But you could start to see it then. You could see the young guys that what we did when we got there is like, we're going to lose, and we knew that. We were 1-23 that first year, but there were a couple games we could have won if we had any clue how to win a game. But we just didn't, and we were fortunate that when the one we did, we almost messed it up. But we decided to surround ourselves with people who would be in for the long haul. And you talk about coaching like philosophies and building pillars to your program and what things you stand for. And we were so young, so inexperienced. We didn't start with a phrase, a catchphrase, or pillars. What we started with, I guess this is kind of a catchphrase, but we told our guys we are here to build respect, and that means some nights, coach, that meant trying not to have a running clock. And we had a few of those. I've never been on the losing end of those until I got to Friendship. But you could see it in those young kids early that they were going to stick around and be a part of the full thing. And you could see their improvement each year, which was a direct correlation to our improvement, our records improvement each year.
So you started off 1-23 first year, 10-15 your second year, your third year you're 22-7. In this past year you went 23-5. So you really had an opportunity to take a brand new school and build it up from the very beginning. You were able to put your footprint and also develop the culture early on. So what was it like for you to take this brand new program and develop it into a sort of a regional power?
Well, it was real rewarding, but I guess as coaches, in the beginning of our careers, we want to do real well to show everybody that we belong and all that stuff. But then as we get a little older, we start, changing our goals a little bit, and it became more rewarding to me to see those kids who got killed those first couple years to step back and watch them win. That was really fun, because we preach all the time, you stick with it, you work hard, you do all these things, you're going to be successful. And they had to trust it because they weren't seeing it early on. And then to be able to step back and watch them in that third year, we won a conference tournament championship, and to step back and just watch them jumping up and down on the floor like little kids and celebrating and going into the locker room and continuing to celebrate there and just getting on the bus with a bunch of happy kids, and hugging them and all that stuff. That was really rewarding. And it's kind of neat as you get older and you can focus on those kids a little bit more because you're content with your own accomplishments. And I think that's a little bit the way it was. And it made me be able to enjoy it a little bit more to watch them be successful.
Well, you had one player that I'm very familiar with, and that's Vic Farrar, who's going to NC State. But a lot of people don't know the story behind Nick. When he was basically a freshman, sophomore, he was on nobody's radar. No one even thought he would be playing at the ACC level. Talk about Nick as far as when you first started coaching him at the very beginning to this past year where he graduated and now he's going to NC State.
Well, Nick basically didn't have a freshman year because of a broken leg. And, the summer going into his sophomore year, when he comes to us, he was still the one thing that he always hates saying is I haven't kidded about this to him in press conferences in person, but he was kind of a fat guy his sophomore year, but not entirely his fault. He come off a broken leg, hadn't played any basketball, and he finally got cleared in late June of his rising sophomore year. We go to team camp at Catawba. He didn't even play on our one team at Catawba because he was so out of shape, and again, rightfully so, coming off an injury. But he's struggling to get up and down the court, but you could still see that he was skilled for a guy his size. He just didn't have the body at the time. And then over the course of the next year, he had a really good sophomore year for us. Again, won 10 games, and he had a lot to do with that. But going into really that summer, going into his junior year, I thought he really took off. His body started developing to a little bit more what you see now, more athletic. I don't believe he might dispute this, but I don't think he could dunk a basketball his sophomore year, just because of how heavy he had gotten and how little trust he had in his leg. But to see from an athletic standpoint how much better he got, and we as coaches, we push him that kind of thing, but a kid has to make that commitment, and he made a tremendous commitment to improving his body, more so than just his game, even while that improved too. But his body was the difference that made him a college player. And for him, it was really frustrating. For me, attached to him, for everybody attached to him, it was really frustrating to watch his recruitment just kind of plod along. Because after his junior year, and you guys saw him in your camps, he's really productive.
He was great.
But there were so many people. And really the way that I knew that we'd have a fit for Nick at the next level, if I got a call from a college coach that asked what position he was, in the back of my mind, I thought, Nick can't play there. Because Nick's not a position guy. He's just that oddity that he's just not defined by a number. And, he's just a player, a competitor. And, programs that prioritize competitors and guys who can do lots of things were good fits for him. And you could see that as the recruitment played out. Houston, very early in the process, they were the first big name to jump on him. It was a cool story. We were in the lobby of the office at our school, and he's left for our open lunch. And I call him. I'm like, you need to get here. Houston's getting ready to come. They want to talk to you. And so he has to wheel the car around and come back. And we talked with Coach, and Coach, it was the younger Coach Sampson, and then he let us know. He's like, "Hey, Dad's going to call you tonight. He wants to offer you. He won't let me offer you. He wants to do it." And then he leaves, and Nick looks at me and says, "Coach, is he going to offer us or offer me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's what it sounded like, Nick. Like you're going to get offered." So he was excited. Nick calls me later afternoon. "Hey, they just offered me," and that was his first big one, and that was really cool. And then we go into June, in that NCAA evaluation period, and he just explodes. We go down to Charlotte for that at Queens, and coaches are lined our sidelines, and the LSUs and the Texas A&Ms, and those folks jumped in on him. And as you know, of course, since you guys were keeping up so tightly with him, once State jumped in, that was it. That's all she wrote. I mean, he was like a day later, he's already committed. So he chased that offer for a long time. It's close. It's nearby. It's a great story. High school OT did on him, and his late mother, and his journey. And it was really rewarding. Again, you tell kids work, and good things will happen for you. And he's a great story for you, me, for all of us to say, here's an example of a guy who did all the work and then finally got the reward. No, that was cool.
No question, Coach. And I remember him coming to our camp immediately after he came off that leg injury. And like you said, he was a little bit out of shape, but every time he came back to camp, you could see he worked on his body and he got more explosive. And the thing that always impressed me about him was his attitude. Number one, he played with a high motor. I mean, he was full throttle on the court. Also, off the court, the thing that impressed me about Nick was how polite he was. He was very humble. Everything was yes, sir, no, sir. Thank you, Coach. Just a very unique prospect that you just don't see often, that, you see the work that he put in it from the time he was hurt as a freshman until what you see at this finished product as a senior is very rewarding, and it's a great story to tell for a lot of young players out there.
It is, and we're real proud of him. And in all honesty, I don't know that he is. I think a year from now, 2 years from now, he's going to look back at his game as a senior or a junior, and he's going to look back and go, I wasn't very good, because I still think the upside is there. He's got a lot more upside than what we see. I think once he gets to, he's a baby. He's 17 years old. Right. And once he gets to, to college and gets to take part in a real lifting, nutrition, and hard college regimen, I think that's going to benefit his game. It's going to benefit his body. And the guy we see now is going to be, we'll look back and go, he wasn't very good then compared to what he is now. And I think that kind of growth is ahead for him. I mean, he's a guy, given the right health and he could make money playing this game someday. To what level, I don't know. But he's a guy that could hop on a plane and go play anywhere in the world 4 years from now. And that's going to be neat to follow. And I hope he stays the course. And, we can all remember our freshman year in college, and everybody goes through their bumps, and he's going to have those. But like you said, he's got the right moral fiber to handle those bumps. He's been through a lot already in his life, and I look forward to seeing him progress over the next few years. And I think we're going to see a much better player then than we do now.
Well, the other thing too is Nick has tremendous range. He's really worked on his jump shot. He can really just score from all three levels. And you mentioned earlier, like what position, and a lot of times people will say, well, what position does he play? And my response is, he's just a basketball player. I mean, Right. He just knows how to play. He has the ability to go in the lane and dunk on somebody. He can, shoot the mid-range. He can step out and hit the three. He's just a very talented basketball player.
Now, and funny story about that three-pointer, he didn't shoot the three well early in his career. And it wasn't for a lack of skill. Looking back on it, he wasn't in great shape, and when he had to play a little harder, he couldn't shoot the ball from out there. His legs, he loses legs a little bit, his form would fall apart. And he used to ask me as a young guy, Coach, are you ever going to let me shoot the three? I said, I tell you what, you show me you can make it, I'll let you shoot. And again, there's worked on his body, worked on his game, got to be a guy who could shoot it, so we let him shoot it. And I think he shot at a 40% clip his senior year, which is, for a guy his size, that played as many minutes he played. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. For people who haven't seen Apex Friendship play, what is the scouting report on a PJ Lowman team?
Well, there's a lot of things I hope that we are. That doesn't necessarily mean we are, but I hope we execute. But before that, I hope we play really hard. I hope folks can come and watch us play and go, man, they played hard. And the rest of the stuff can fall into place as it may. I mean, we'd always like to do a lot better. We'd like to talk better. We'd like to rebound better. Games we don't shoot well, let's shoot it better. We'd like to execute better. We don't do those things, but it starts with I want people to say that our teams at Apex Friendship play hard. I want people to say that our teams at Jordan Matthews played hard. And I think they could do that for the most part, and that was something we had to ingrain into the culture here at Apex Friendship. Which was hard, again, when you're getting beat so bad as we were early. But we found the right guys to play hard. I think they do that. We want to play with emotion, positive emotion. I'm an emotional guy. If anybody's watched me on the sidelines, I enjoy it. I have a great time coaching, and I want my guys to have a great time playing. Not that manufactured stuff, but genuine emotion where you're playing hard. And that's where it starts for us. I hope that people say that about our teams. We want to guard people man to man, and early in my career, I stayed with that no matter what. As I've gotten a little older, sometimes I might play a possession or two a zone occasionally, depending upon how our opponent lines up. But so I've learned to be a little less rigid about philosophy as I've gotten older. But we like to start by knowing we can guard people man to man, and we like to have some kind of continuity offense that takes advantage of personnel, and that's the small school background in me. You can't have a rigid philosophy when you come from a smaller school. You take what you get. And my last team at Jordan Matthews, nobody was taller than 6'1", 6'2". The entire team looked like that. Now, they were athletic as heck, and won 23 games, went to the third round, and could have won that game and advanced a little further. We got beaten a tough one, had an injury in that game. But that's the thing about what we do offensively. We'll play a little different next year. That's the bad part about losing this summer, potentially to all this pandemic stuff. But I was really looking forward to working with my team. We lost 4 starters to graduation, but we've got some really good pieces coming back that a lot of people hadn't heard of. And I think those guys are going to be a little bit more successful than people think.
Well, you mentioned playing hard, and I watched your team play at the John Wall Invitational over the holidays, and you went up against national ranked the Patrick School, and that was a really, really good game. You only lost 70-64, but I thought the game was much closer than the final score. I mean, you only lost by 6 points. So I was impressed by the play that you had against the Patrick School. But talk about, that particular game. You're playing in front of the John Wall, in front of, a packed house, and what did it mean to you and the program playing in such a prestigious event in front of so many people?
Well, for one, we really wanted to be there. I mean, obviously the kids, we played in a tournament the year before down on the coast, and you can see a little bit about what kids in Wake County, what that tournament means to them. Like, we're on the bus and they're scrolling down Twitter and they're finding out information about the wall while we're in the beach. So you can tell how much it means to them. And to get an invitation for those kids, again, who as freshmen were 1 in 23 and then come back as seniors and they're going to the John Wall, that was really rewarding to see those guys get that experience. Then we get our draw, and you draw the Patrick School, and what a lot of people are saying is the number 1 player in his class in the country, in Kuminga. And I can remember it like it was yesterday. I pulled the guys into a huddle as we shot around before we left, and I told them the same thing the day before too. But I said, 2 things are going to happen. You're going to go to this game, and you're going to be yourself, and you're going to be competitive. Or you're going to go into this game and you're going to get outside of yourself and try to do things that we don't need to do because the stage is so big, and you're going to get killed. So if you'll trust who you are as a player, as a team, we're going to be competitive. And boy, did they make me look real smart. And you mentioned we lost that game by 6, but we had Nick hit a shot from the left wing to put us up 1 with under 3 minutes to go, and the roof almost blew up off the place. I mean, it was really cool. You talk about playing hard. I thought we maybe won the crowd that night. folks were so excited. I was excited. I went from coach to fan a few times because I was just cheering on the effort, the diving on the floor, the drawing charges. One of our younger players stripped Kaminga on a fast break at the end of the first half, and the ball goes out of bounds. It cost them a layup. And I mean, just a gutsy play, like stuff like that was just so fun to watch. I got excited about the effort. The crowd was excited about the effort. And, while we lost the game, I would have had a chance to win that one, obviously. It's one of those, sometimes you walk out the door when it's over with and go, we might have lost, but we gained about as much as we could gain out of a loss from that one.
Yeah. I often said, you sort of, you won the battle but lost the war in that particular game, because the atmosphere in there was just absolutely crazy and electric. And, again, the intensity that, like Nick Farrar and the team had was, it's easy for the crowd to get behind.
Nick scoring 35 points has a little helped quite a bit, but not just scoring 35. In true Nick fashion, he was very efficient.
Yeah,
he didn't take a whole lot of shots to get to 35, and to do that on that stage. I mean, I'm happy for our team. I was real happy for him. He's still a guy that people were like, well, is he good enough? Is he good enough? And I heard that question a lot. And on that stage, I think he showed a whole lot of people that, yes, he's good enough.
Well, he also shot the three ball extremely well in that particular game. I mean, the basket was just probably 10 times bigger than what it was for Nick, because he was just hitting everything. But he reminds me a little bit of a Grant Williams that played for Providence State, went on to play at Tennessee, and now Grant is playing in the NBA with the Boston Celtics. The thing that you can't take away from Nick is the heart and the desire. He plays with that chip on his shoulder, and he has that drive to wanting to be the best he can be. He loves to compete. And I think that's really the thing that separates Nick from a lot of other people. You guys rebounded quite nicely off the opening loss. It was a great game, but you came back, and I think you played Broughton, you beat them. And then the really key matchup was the win that you had over Durham Academy, which that was a very good team as well. So you finished 2-1 in the John Wall, and that sort of set the stage for the season for you.
Right. And, we had beaten Broughton pretty handily the first game of the year, but obviously the Broughton team we saw the second time was a lot different from the one we saw the first time. I mean, they took Farmville Central to the wire. I mean, had a great chance to win that game in round one. It was tough. You like to see how your team rebounds from big games, big losses. We played that game against the Patrick School and finished at 10 o'clock later. Got back to our school pretty late. But then we had to turn around and play at like 9:30 the next morning against Broughton, and that was tough for us. And we kind of slugged our way through that, and they hit us with a lot of shots and did some good things against us compared to the first time. Nick, I think, had 30-some again, which really helped. But that Durham Academy game, like you said, was one we really paid close attention to. After playing Broughton, we hung around and we watched those guys beat Greenfield. We knew they were really well coached. They had really skilled players. And we thought that was a huge game for us. And looking at the bracket, we thought to ourselves, if we could go 2-1, what a heck of a Christmas that is. We had went 3-0 in a tournament at Northwood High School right before Christmas. And that could have served as a really big launching point for the second half of our season. We go in there to Durham Academy and make a ton of threes. Kenny Nolan, Jackson Spencer, Luke Proctor, those guys really shot the ball well and fed off of Nick. When they collapsed on Nick, he did a good job finding people, and we did a good job making shots, and we beat a really good team that day. And then I think we go on and win 17 straight from there. So that was 15 straight, including those wall games. So to say it served as a launching point would be an understatement.
Now, Coach, you're still pretty young in your coaching career, and you started out, basically as a JV coach at Pinecrest. You got to go coach at your alma mater and Jordan Matthews, and now you took over a new program. What's the biggest lessons you've learned so far as a coach?
Well, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I think the thing that I look at first and foremost is surrounding yourself with the right people, and that's kids, that's coaches. I'm real fortunate here at Apex Friendship that I've got two assistants that both played for me at Jordan Matthews. One of my assistants, his father was my assistant the entire 12 years at Jordan Matthews and is now the head coach there. So there's a little bit of a family atmosphere, and it helps sometimes too. I'm not the easiest guy sometimes as a coach. I get on the guys pretty hard sometimes, and it's nice to have guys that played for me who also got their butts chewed out early, in their life, to be able to pull a guy aside and go, look, he's doing this for you, and he listen to the message. That listen to the message, and they can back me on some things from a player's perspective. So that's real good. And I think surrounding yourself with those kind of people who are supportive, who are going to be in it, and who are going to be positive when things aren't going so good, as they were when we started here. And that includes players and coaches. I think it's real important, and I've been lucky with this. But if there was a young coach getting into it, I would tell them to make sure that they find a place to call a home where the administration is good and supportive of what they're doing. But you also, as a coach, have to communicate your philosophy to your administration, and be real clear on that. And so, they can't support you if they don't know what you stand for.
Right.
And I've got real good administration here. That was a tough thing about leaving Jordan Matthews. I had an excellent principal in administration there too. But that makes me lucky, and everybody's not as lucky as me. And sometimes in those first jobs, you might have to make some compromises. But as you get a little older, you can be a little more picky about what you do. And I would always be mindful of the type of school that you're working at, and the type of administration. But there's what's the old saying, be happy where you are. What's the reason that you're doing this? If the reason you're doing this to coach, then you don't have to worry about, well, am I winning enough? Am I doing? If you're in it to coach, then coach the heck out of the kids you got. And that's what we've tried to do. And then you're gonna win more than you lose if you do a great job as a coach and your kids do a good job. But it's not sometimes where you are; it's why you're doing it. And as long as I want to do this, I hope to find that this is a great spot, and I hope to always have a good spot to be. Some folks aren't as lucky, but that's one thing I would encourage young coaches to do is find the right spot with the right people.
Last question, Coach. Who's had the biggest impact on your coaching career?
Well, I think, and I've mentioned earlier, Coach John Phillips at Jordan Matthews was where it started. My dad was a guy who helped out in every rec league and sponsored every team and coached little kids his whole life too. And so in that sense, he's a coach, a guy in coaching that I always looked up to. But from a high school coaching perspective, John Phillips, Terry Davis and Mike Apple, Robert Kent, and then some of the looking at some of the players who had an influence. I still remember those first guys at Pinecrest High School: Devontae Drakeford, R. Vetra Jones, Tremaine Pride, Deion Baynard, Kevin Lapping, Ryan Gabbard. And there's so many. I remember those guys, and one of the reasons I remember them so well is, as a young guy, you want to win and you want to prove that you belong. And I was real hard on those teams, probably way harder than I am on teams now. And for those guys to take it and grow with me and win early with me, giving me a lot of confidence, and to stay in touch with some of those guys is really fun, and see what successful men they've become. But those first guys, without their buying in, am I still doing this? I don't know. Maybe not, because, you need somebody to believe in you early. And I have the right adults to believe in me, but to have the first few teams believe in me, and I consider myself really, really lucky.
Coach, earlier I asked you to give a scouting report on Apex Friendship, and you mentioned one thing. You want everybody to know that your team plays hard. And that was one thing that I took away from watching you in the 3 games at the John Wall. But, since you've been at Apex Friendship, you took a program that went 0-20. First year was 1-23, and this past year you went 23-5 in your 4th year. And it's pretty evident. I know you've had some players along the way, but more importantly, you were able to come in and help build a program at Apex Friendship, and it has to be very gratifying and rewarding as a coach to be part of something from the ground up. And we want to say thank you from Phenom Hoop Report for being on Coach's Corner today. And I know you lose some players, Nick Farrar going to NC State, but like you said, there'll be some other players coming up through the pipeline. And we want to say thank you and good luck to you for this coming season.
I appreciate that. And I know I speak for a lot of coaches. We appreciate this forum to talk about our programs. And I definitely have enjoyed listening to some other coaches and, getting a few ideas here and there. So it's been real. That's one of the advantages of the times that we're living in right now. We're all kind of stuck inside, and it's been really rewarding to be able to find some stuff about other coaches, listen to their philosophies, and seeing what made other people have success, and maybe try to find some things to implement on my own. But I really do appreciate this opportunity, and I've enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.